Hey, John and Mike, brew-dudes.com. You know, we got our community brew going. There's still time for you to be a part of the community brew. We have a lot of people who have written in. They've given us their addresses. They've said they've brewed. It's kind of a big deal. You don't want to miss it this year. I mean, we'll probably do it next year, but you don't want to miss it this year because more and more people are writing to us that they've done it, that they're going to be swapping with people. So if you still want to be a part of the community brew, please check out our blog at brew-dudes.com, and you'll see the recipe. You'll understand what the community is all about. Drop us a note at dudes@brew-dudes.com. That's our email address, and be a part of the brew that is the community brew for 2019 next year.
Side note.
Yes.
For not a community brew.
What?
This is a pretty tasty whip beer.
This whip beer is still going on and on and on and on. Have you seen the whiteboard? It's all been updated.
Yeah.
Some people.
If you can read that, you are clearly left-handed.
Yeah.
My son wrote on the board the other day.
Yeah, you're giving.
Dad, what's in the keg? I said,
Yes.
Go ahead,
why
write
don't
it
you
out.
do it? Yes. So. Tasking that to the young ones now.
All right, back on point.
Yes. So about the community brew. So I brewed following your recipe.
Yeah.
And I overlooked the let's get enough wort for 6.5 gallons, U.S. gallons, at the end of the boil. And I was like, meh, I'm just going to follow my same old procedure. I'll get my 7 gallons collected of wort, let it boil down, because I know that's going to get me at 5.5 U.S. gallons to put into the fermenter, because the rest, that last half gallon is trub and hop debris and blah, 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 blah. I'll get right to the 5 gallon mark on my carboy and be happy until I get that original gravity and see like, whoa, 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 this beer is going to be a lot stronger than I thought it was going to be. So your question to me was like, well, what's your interpretation of batch size?
Batch size, yeah.
And so with that, I answer with this. I say, like, if you're going to give me a recipe for, this is for a 5 gallon recipe. 5 gallons.
Yep.
To me, and this is just based on my personal experience, to me that means what I will have to put into my fermenter.
So you look at 5 gallons as...
I look at the batch size to be what I'm going to have at the end of the brew session in my fermenter.
Okay, in your fermenter.
In my fermenter.
So batch size for you is...
What am I putting in my fermenter?
How much you get in the fermenter.
Yes.
Okay, so that's interesting because that's right in the middle. You know, I've seen a few articles about this, and I've never really gave it, and I've heard a few podcasts about this debate. So I'll say for me, when people look at my recipes are generally for 6.5 gallons.
Dude.
And what that is 6.5 gallons at the end of the boil.
Okay.
In the kettle, that's how much is sitting there.
All right. So why so much? Like, are you looking to make?
Because,
all right.
Because for me, I like to get about 5.5 to 5 1/4. I'm not super specific about it. Into my fermenter.
Yep.
Because then I know I'm going to package about 5 1/4 to 5 gallons.
Got it.
All right. So 5 gallons in a fermenter to me means I'm going to package less than 5 gallons of beer. So my goal, in my mind, I always want to be packaging at least 5 gallons of beer. And if you're bottling beer, and you put 5 gallons in a fermenter, you're not going to get 2 full cases of beer, right? And that's the standard idea behind a 5 gallon batch, right? So I guess, and I just said it out loud, right? A 5 gallon batch. Then so if we dial it back to like the godfather of all homebrewing, like Charlie Papazian, like those recipes, that conceptually, at the end of a brew session, once the beer is totally done and in bottles, you have 2 cases, which basically was 5 gallons of beer.
Yep.
But the way people brew has changed so much. I think that like what batch sizes mean have changed a little bit for different people, and it's based on system. Like for me, one of the reasons why I have 6.5 gallons finish is because I know with my system, because I've got a dip tube, a pickup tube, that I need to have a certain volume of beer left over so I don't break siphon while I'm transferring out or using a pump or something. And I also lose volume to my pump lines, about a quart here or there. So for 6.5 finish or 6 gallon finish batch for me in the kettle, I know I'm going to lose a quarter of that, a quarter gallon in the lines. I'm going to put 5.5 in a fermenter, and if I'm lucky, I can do almost 5.25 packaging.
Got it.
Right? So batch size then is either, you can either look at it 3 ways.
Sure.
End of the boil.
Yep.
What goes in the fermenter.
Yep.
Or what the package size is.
True.
But those numbers are different. Now, I guess the other thing too, I've always sort of gone along with Brewing Classic Styles, that book.
Yeah.
Those recipes are all based on how much he had at the end of the boil.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And you could argue that might be what you put in the fermenter, but depending on the style of beer, I'm trying to leave some trub behind.
Yes.
So that's
I try
volume
to do
in
that
the.
too.
So for me, it's about how much volume do I need at the end of the boil to leave some behind and lose some in my lines and in the fermenter and then out of the fermenter at packaging. So batch size for me is end of the kettle, and I'm sure everybody does it differently. But the point of this is to discuss the fact that if we're not clear on these really subtle details, you get a beer that was intended to be 1052 and
Yes.
maybe we get 1062. That's still a big difference for only like half a gallon.
It is.
But then there's a whole other conversation about efficiency too.
Yeah, and we should talk about that at some point. But I think because I think it was some of the issue in terms of I didn't make enough wort. My wort was a little more concentrated then.
Yep.
And that's also I brew for the equipment I have too.
Yep.
So if I had a bigger kettle, which I should really buy a new kettle and get a bigger size kettle
Yep.
so that I can handle.
And one with
a lot-
handles.
Yeah, yeah, true. But that has nothing to do with efficiency.
Okay.
It's actually like the challenge of
Yes.
holding the size with
With
gloves.
the lid on it. I don't know
Yes.
how you do that.
I'm strong fingers. Now really sidetracked, but I think that if I had the equipment that could handle larger batch sizes,
Yeah.
then I would be able to be more flexible in my brewing procedure.
Yeah.
And it's also, so I think getting back to the point, there was a little bit about not making enough wort, but there was also, I think,
So
I had a really, really good grind, or I milled those grains very finely, it seemed,
Yeah.
and I got a very fermentable wort off of that as well.
So I think everybody has different goals when they brew. For instance, some people really focus on getting as much extract out of their mash. Like efficiency is really important to them, right?
Yep.
And maybe to some extent that translates into total brew house efficiency. Because something you could have done is as you're approaching the very end of the boil, and I have done this in the past, I don't do as much anymore, but with a refractometer,
Yep.
when you get down to 5 minutes left in the boil, 10 minutes left in the boil, you could take a sample and adjust its temperature, but then take a quick reading and go, okay, this is where I'm at. I need to boil a little bit long. So I used to do what I used to call boil to gravity.
Yep.
In fact, I think there might be a post on the blog a long time ago from this. But I used to take a reading as I was getting close, maybe 15 minutes left, 10 minutes left, see where I was before I added my finishing hops, and make an estimate. Do I need to boil more, or do I need to add a little water?
Yes.
Right? So for a while, my goal was to hit a target. It was important to me to hit a target starting gravity. Now I've kind of relaxed on that a little bit, and if I'm 5 points up or 5 points lower, I don't care so much. But I do know some people who brew who they don't care about the gravity, but they can't stand the idea of there still being a quart or a pint of wort in the kettle. It's got to go in the fermenter. They have to have.
Yeah.
Otherwise, to them, they're wasting beer.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Or when they're packaging the beer, they got to tip that carboy and be
Yeah.
racking. As it's racking out, they're like, oh my gosh, I got to get that last little bit. Otherwise, they're wasting beer. I'm like, beer is cheap when you're making it at home. It's okay. Brew another batch of beer, But everybody has what's important to them.
Yep.
Right?
Agreed.
So for me, if I get 4 gallons of excellent beer in the fermenter, in the keg at the end, that's all I care
I'm
about.
happy about that.
I want a beer that as long as I get 2 pints that taste great, so we can put it on camera. That's all I care about.
That's how it's.
So I go from a 6.5
yes.
gallon batch size down to 2 pints.
Wow.
That's my brew house efficiency is total garbage.
Your
but
standards are really low, man.
well, it's all
Really
for the
low.
blog.
It's all for the
blog.
videos.
Yeah, all for the videos.
All right, and based on that, you, the viewer, what's your thoughts? Leave a comment below. in terms of how do you, when you think of batch size, what do you imagine? What's your thoughts on that? Because we appreciate just thinking about it too, because it seems like it's not really cut and dry. Even though I think that if you make a recipe, you should say, this is what I mean by.
And I think I'll strive to do better and say end of boil, but from this moment forward, when I say 6 gallons or 6.5 gallons, it means
end of boil.
End of boil.
That guy. All right. Cool. Thanks a lot. Please subscribe to our channel if you dig what you're seeing. We do this every week. We got a community brew going on. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be wrapping it all up. And hopefully you can be a part of it too. For John and Mike, brew-dudes.com. Batch on.
Cheers.